So this topic has been let's say always a challenging topic. There are two sides in this coin and both sides are right, and it's an argument and a discussion that hasn't gone away for very long time, and I'm going to give you a couple of recent example in this. So it's a government access to keys like GAK, that's short, and here's what the idea is that let's say you are a software company that creates a product or a hardware company that encrypts your data and you want to keep it private. So if you want to keep it a secret, it's usually it's your stuff, so you want to keep it a secret. Well, what if you come in a crime, and what if you commit a treason and you are under the investigation by the FBI or police, and that information may not be as private as you thought it was. So what this is that the software companies will give copies of their keys to the government. Now the government is responsible to keep these keys not accessible or usable. They just keep them in a key, and sometimes the third party within the government or a third party key screw that these keys can be used when necessary in order to uncrack something, so that they can, and so if it common times, if there is a court order or warrant, and that is obtained in order to be able to use that. Now we have had this process in a place for longer than you might be aware, and it certainly started after the 9/11. So this was enhanced and even more was put into this, and let me give you one of the argument that has been and how people have gotten around this. So there are encryption method and communication manners where the government does not have access to these keys. It is still going to be an argument, but there are some of the secure program that the government cannot decrypt, they cannot monitor, or not they cannot check. And there is a challenge right now that with terrorism being utilized on these communication channels, that there are the people that created that communication channels for a different, and someone for something for terrorist who can communicate, and for that reason that cannot be monitored. So if it's so that they believe that your privacy is your privacy, you have the right to keep your data secure from prying eyes, and regardless of who that is. Now whatever you whichever seated your argument, you might kind of lean toward those sides of correct. The government wants access for criminal activities, which makes a lot of sense, but with today, with all of our activities being on online or electronic devices or our phones or tablets and all kind of stuffs, this is a challenge today, and this is a communication across the internet. However, there is also some rights in the idea that, well, I have some private medical records, and I have something that I don't want someone to see or know. So according to that, they don't have that authorities. Now there is another example of this that I want to clarify, and there is a one little bit recently, like Apple has been under security because the FBI has had a phone that they need to be cracked, and they cannot because they don't have the way to crack it. So Apple usually helps the government, so the other company that are opened up their phones in, and there is a court order, and in this case there is a little bit different. What the FBI needed Apple to do was not just to pull the data out of the encryption that they would already put on, but they also wanted to backdoor return into the operating system. This is something that doesn't really already exist, and it created a weak point to the encryption. So the Apple argumented is that if we do this for you, it's immediately going to get out. It will be risky, and it's going to get hackers, and they are going to able to crack into anybody's phone in real time because of the backdoor, and there is a very big concern. The FBI's position was that we need to get to the data of the phone, and we don't know how to do it at that moment. So fortunately this argument kind of settled down when the FBI did find a third party that could crack the Apple phone and get the data off. However, you can imagine this argument is going to continue for some time, like many years, as you talk about. I think the government access to the keys, be aware that there will be an ongoing discussion with everybody, and it's going to be so long, and it will continue to be like this. But this is generally the idea of a government access to the keys.